Introduction. So far in many lessons, we've come across the word timeline, haven't we? Well, here we're going to discuss timeline in detail. The timeline is the area on the screen where you'll be working with layers and frames to alter your movie's content and animation. Frames allow us to perform, control, and organize animation. Whatever objects we place in stage are held by layers and can also be an animated object. Next, the playhead. It indicates the current frame and frame numbers are shown. Here we can see current frame. It's used to indicate the frame number and the position of the playhead. Frames per second. Frames per second, or frame rate. 12 FPS is the default frame rate for our movie. Now, when the movie is not playing. When the movie is playing, it dynamically shows the actual playback speed. If you increase your frame rates, your animation will be smoother. Elapsed time. This indicates the time between the first frame of the movie and the current frame, depending on where we place the playhead. Next in timeline, we have different types of frames available in the timeline. Now let's learn these one by one. Frames. There are blank frames and they are available by default in the timeline. Keyframe. The frame with the black dot. For example, the playhead is known as the keyframe. This frame records the changes performed in a symbol or object over the stage to perform the animation. Blank keyframe. It is used to create a blank keyframe, for example, an empty keyframe without any object. As we right-click on the frame, we get several options. Now let's take a look at these one by one. Create motion tween, create shape tween, and create classic tween options. Now these give shape and motion tweening to the selected frames, which we'll discuss later in this tutorial. Insert frames option inserts frames, and we can remove them using remove frames option. Similarly, we can insert keyframe, blank keyframe using the corresponding options. We can clear a keyframe using the clear keyframe option. Converting frame as keyframe and blank keyframe can also be done. We can cut, copy, and paste the frames. Clear frames will clear the object and the frame. We can select all the frames using select all frames. We can even copy and paste the motion as well as the motion as action script. Reversing the frames is possible using the reverse frames option. Symbols can be synchronized for animation using the Synchronize Symbols option. Actions option opens up the action palette used for frames. Hence, we've learned the types of frames and the options available within the timeline. We'll talk about the two types of tweening and onion skin in the upcoming lessons. Frames and keyframes. Frames. By default, frames are available in the timeline. For instance, if we add animation to an object in frame 1 and end in frame 10, but we want that animation to extend till the, say, 20th frame, then we can use Insert Frame option. To have the same animation till some amount of frames, we can use Frames option. It won't add keyframe, but it gives frames. Now let's discuss this with an example. Place one object on frame 1 until the 10th frame and give some animation. Well, now if we want to extend that animation till, say, the 20th, press F5 to extend the frame. Very good, look here, frame got extended. A tip for you here, we can add frames by pressing F5 or right-clicking in the timeline. Select Insert Frame option or go to Insert, select Timeline and choose Frame. Keyframe. The frame of the black dot, for example the playhead, is known as the keyframe. This frame records the changes performed in a symbol or object over the stage to perform the animation. We also have the blank keyframe, which is used to create an empty keyframe. Now we can add keyframe by pressing F6 and blank keyframe by pressing F7. Let's see all this with an example, shall we? Add a new layer and now place one object on the first frame, and then go to the 20th frame. Press F6 to add keyframe for the same object. Then press F7 in the 21st frame to add blank keyframe. Now here draw one object. Then go to the 30th frame and press F6. That's good. Now just move our playhead and we'll see that we've got some animation. Here's a tip for you. You can add keyframe by pressing F6 and F7, or right-clicking in Timeline and select Insert Key or Blank Keyframe option. Or go to Insert, select Timeline, and choose Keyframe. So successfully we have learned that frames allow us to perform, control, and organize animation. And the frame with the black dot is known as, that's right, the keyframe. Layers are used to hold objects which we place on the stage. They are found in the timeline. We can add new layers by using the New Layer option from the New Layer icon. We can edit the object in one layer without affecting the objects in other layers. A pencil icon in the layer indicates that it is the active layer. We can make a layer visible or invisible using the eye icon. A layer can be locked. For example, the objects in a layer can be locked using the lock icon. To view only the outline of the objects in a layer, click on the outline icon. Simply double-click to rename the layer. Now, as we right-click on the layer, we can see several menus available. We'll discuss these one by one. Show All will unlock and make all layers visible. Lock Others will lock all other layers except for the currently selected one. Hide Others will hide all the other layers except for the current layer. We can insert and delete a layer using the Insert and Delete Layer options. Guide and Add Classic Motion Guide will add to the corresponding layers. Masking and Show Masking options will allow us to perform masking effects on the objects on the corresponding layers. We can organize the layer by creating folders using the Insert Folder option. We can delete, expand, and collapse a folder using these options. Expand and collapse all folders will expand and collapse all the folders available in the timeline. Next, we have the Layer Properties. Click on that and we'll get a dialog box, which allows us to alter layer name, show lock a layer, layer type, outline color of a layer, view the object's outline in the layer, and layer height. Set the desired parameters and click OK, and note the change in the layer. Also note that we can add and delete layers using icons below the layers. We can add folders using the New Folder icon. We can add a new layer and folder from the Insert menu. Go to Insert, select Timeline, and choose Layer or Layer Folder. Hence, layers play an important role in organizing and editing individual elements in Flash. Scenes. Scenes are used to separate our movie into sessions. For example, just think we created a short file, and for that file in the first scene displays the title of the movie. Second scene displays a movie. The final scene displays the lists of the characters. Specialty of the scene is each has its own timeline and can include its own separate animation. Fine, now move to Interface. Here, title of the scene is displayed in Edit Bar. We can edit this using the Scene panel window, which is in the Window menu. To create the scene, go to Window menu, select Other panel, and in that choose Scene. Scene panel allows us to change the scene name, add a new scene, duplicate, and delete a scene. Therefore, scenes are useful when we create scene-by-scene animations, and we can link and control them by using scripts.